This is how to do the moss stitch, and I'm using the Authentic Knitting Board Sock Loom 2 to show you it on. I like the gauge of this loom because you can usually use just one strand of worsted weight yarn. Now I put stitch markers on to remind me that I'll be changing what I'm doing on each peg, so keep that in mind that you may want to have a few of these on hand if you're working the stitch. Now first of all, what the moss stitch does is it creates a textured reversible fabric. Now I did the rib stitch up here a little bit, so right in here is where you see the reversible type fabric. And again, if I turn it this way, you can see how it's looking in there. It's a reverse fabric. Now this is a pretty easy stitch to work up. It's basically using combinations of knitting and purling, similar to the rib stitch, but a little different. This time, instead of the rib stitch where we would knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one, and repeat that same process mimicking what we did in the first row, we're now going to be changing that up to help us create this textured fabric, or textured design. So what we're going to do first, the first row, you're going to knit one, purl one, all the way to the end. And I've cast on this many stitches just to give you an idea of a small sample of how it's going to work. Okay, so what we want to do first, like I said, is you're going to knit one, get down there. It's better if I have it down. We're going to knit one, then we're going to move over it, and we're going to purl one. Knit one, purl one, knit, purl. And again, you can do the flat knit if you like that, or a different knit stitch. I just usually like doing the E-wrap. It's just the one I prefer to do. And we're ending on the purl. So when you cast on your stitches, you need to make sure that you're ending on a purl. Now when we go back through, we're going to start with our purl. We're going to purl this one and then knit that one. So we're reversing sort of what we did before. Or the other way you can think about it is whatever you end on, which we ended on purl, we're going to start with our purl this time. So what you end with is what you start with, if that makes any sense. So now, instead of knitting this peg, we're going to purl it. And so wherever my stitch markers are, I know that I'm going to have to purl. And that's all it is, rotating or alternating the two rows. And this is usually worked over 2 rows. It's also called a seed stitch as well, sometimes. And you could do a double moss stitch, which is basically doing this 4 times, doubling the rows up. But again, you can repeat this through a whole project for like a scarf or a hat. And when you work in the round, it's going to be a little, keep in mind that when you get back to your starting point, that you need to be doing the opposite of what you did before, or whatever you ended with, you need to start with type thing. But this is working it as a flat panel. And then we knit. So again, if we want to do another set of 2, I would start with the knit. I ended with the knit, I'd start with the knit 1, purl 1, and go forward with that design until I ended with the purl. And then again, working your way back, you would repeat what you did. You would start with the purl and that. So having stitch markers will kind of help you realize that you do need to change up the stitch on the second row over, and that you just need to reverse it. And again, it's kind of cool because it will create kind of a design in here, a very nice textured fabric, if you can see that. And again, it's on this side as well. And again, I did the rib stitch. So if you look right here, you can see the rib stitch that we learned before, and I can have a link to that, where we were just alternating them. But then when you get into this, you get more of a cool kind of texture design, which would be great with like baby blankets, hats, anything that you loomed it. So go ahead and try this stitch out, and I hope it works for you. And if you have any questions, comment below.